Hello students. In previous class we were discussing about tally marking, right? Tally marking also is one of the important concept, so it will come for 6 marks. Okay, so it is a very easy task. So using that values you have to make a marking. Okay, so sometimes while making like this, while dividing like this, while we are doing frequency distribution, sometimes maybe we can loss of the information. Sometimes it will be happen. Okay, so that is only we have to understand, we have to discuss in this class, loss of information. When we are collecting raw data, that is exactly, it's a true data only. But when we are dividing like classification, the frequency distribution helpful to the how to divide or distribute like different classes or different frequencies, different ways. So frequency distribution is helpful to the divide the or classification of the raw data, right? But while doing like this, sometimes maybe or may not be, there is a chance to loss of information. What we have collected, maybe it will be loss of information. See, while it summarizes means like dividing that each classes in the frequency, making tally mark and find out the midpoint value, then class mark like class interval. While doing like this, that is while it is summarizes raw data, making it concise and comprehensible. Maybe sometimes it will be happen. So that is only we have to discuss in this class, loss of information. So while summarizes the raw data, sometimes the few some points or few information, maybe it will be lost. We cannot get perfect information while converting the raw data into perfect data through frequency distribution. Okay. And also, it does not show the details, which one the frequency distribution does not show the details that are found in raw data. Okay, how we can collect the data, which way we are collected the data, so what were the keywords, the number of values or numbers, situation, it does not shows the details, which one the frequency distribution method. Okay, this does not show the details what we found in raw data, as well as there is a loss of information while classifying raw data, exactly, because depends upon the time, depends upon the place, depends upon the geographical area, so it depends upon the quantitative, like qualitative, which one frequencies, like tally marking. While doing like this, while classifying like this, definitely it may be happen. What is that? See, the frequency distribution does not shows what we found in raw data. Okay, and also we cannot get complete detail. Not possible to collect the complete details. Okay, while classification. This is while summarizing. While summarizes raw data, making like concise and comprehensive. And also, while doing the classification, we cannot get complete details. Once the data grouped into classes, once the data grouped into classes, once the data like once the data grouped into classes, an individual observation has no significance. That is, once it will be, for example, in the table, you just remember the table. In the tally marking table, you observe that, like example of the class 20 to 30, there are 6 observations. In the 20 to 30, just observe the tally marking table. In that, there are 6 observations. That is 25, 25, 20, again one more 25, 20, 22 and 28. Yes. In the class of 20 to 30, this is a lower class, this is upper class. In the class limit, in the 20 to 30, there are 6 observations. 25, 25, 25, 20, 22, 28. So here, whatever, once the data grouped into classes, once the data grouped into classes, an individual observation, individual value is there, so it has no significance for the further statistics or statistical calculation. It will not helpful to further statistical calculation. That means there is no importance for this. Why? Because once the data grouped into classes, whatever the value is nearby, like 25, we have to calculate 25. Well, this is also 25, this is also 25, this is also 25. That is all are equal, because it will become the classes of 20 to 30. Classes of 20 to 30. That's why there is no importance of each observation for further statistical classification. When data once grouped into classes. So in the frequency distribution, it is we can lose the information. Why? Because all it will come like between 20 to 30 classes. So here all the values under the 25. Like above or below, so that should be considered as within the 20 to 30. Within the 20 to 30. That's why when these data grouped into classes in the frequency distribution, we cannot get perfect values, because these values are not used for further statistical classification. We can consider as only 20 to 30. Otherwise, just 25 only. Either decrease or increase. That is only 25. Okay, and all values in this class are assumed to be equal. Yes, exactly. All are equal only. Even below, above, that is completely equal. And the middle value of the class interval, class mark compulsory 25. Middle value or class mark, everything will be 25. Between this also, that is 25. Mid value or class mark or class interval, that is 25. That's why, while summarizing, while calculating, while classifying, it is not possible to get raw data. Even maybe it will be loss of information. Okay, so this is very important concept. And one more, frequency array. Okay, next topic is frequency array. Simple, frequency array. Why? What purpose we are using this frequency array? What purpose we are using this? Okay, frequency array is nothing but for a discrete variable, for a discrete variable. You know that in the variables there are two, one is continuous, another one is discrete. Okay, for a discrete variable, the classification of its data, the classification of data at a classification of its data is known as frequency array. Okay, frequency array. Simple. What purpose we are calling like frequency array? For a discrete, in the variable there are two, one is continuous and one is discrete. For a discrete variable, the classification of its data, the classification of its data is known as frequency array. Is known as frequency array. Okay. Once again, repeat. We are discussing about loss of information while classifying, while summarizing. We cannot get clear picture about the observations or activities what we collected, information while summarizing, while classifying. Okay, it is not possible to understand what happened, at which situation we collected the information. So what were the sacrifice, what are the efforts, it will not consider. So, and also what we collected as raw data, maybe it is not possible to get as it is. So while converting, while classifying, while summarizing, so that's why maybe it's a loss of information. Loss of information. Okay, another one we discussed about frequency array. Frequency array means for a discrete variable. For a discrete variable, the classification of its data. For a discrete variable, for a classification of its data. Okay, for a discrete variable, the classification. For a discrete variable, the classification of its data. For because in the variables there are two. One is continuous, another one is discrete. Discrete means which can jump one value from another value, right? So for discrete variable, the classification of its data, that is called only frequency array. Okay, frequency array. In that, especially in the frequency, there are univariate frequency, then bivariate frequency. In the frequency distribution, we can see two, or in the frequencies we can observe one is univariate frequency. Okay. Second one is bivariate frequency. Okay, what is the meaning of univariate distribution or univariate frequency distribution? Univariate frequency distribution. Okay, that is the frequency distribution at a single variable. The frequency distribution at a single variable. Okay, the frequency distribution at a single variable is called univariate frequency distribution. Simple, a univariate distribution. Univariate distribution, the name only is there, uni that is single, univariate. Okay. Uniform, like unanimous, like that. Univariate frequency distribution means the frequency distribution of a single variable at a single variable. At a single variable is called as frequency distribution. This is single, like two variables. This is two variables. This is single variable. Single variable, univariate frequency distribution. Two variable, that is bivariate distribution. That is the frequency distribution is the two variable. The frequency distribution at a two variable, that is called as bivariate, and single variable is called as univariate. Okay, up to this the chapter of organization of data. Okay, in this class we discussed about loss of information, frequency array. Frequency array is nothing but for discrete variable. For discrete variable, the classification of its data. Okay, the classification of its data, that is frequency array. And also we discussed about univariate frequency distribution. So univariate frequency distribution frequency distribution at a single variable. Single, there is no more than one, that is single variable. And the second one is bivariate frequency distribution, that is the frequency distribution at two variables. Okay, at two variables, that is called only bivariate frequency distribution. Okay, up to this the chapter is finished. That chapter is which one? Organization of data. The chapter of organization of data, it's a completed. Okay, from next classes I will give the notes.